Hey guys, just a reminder, my online course is Birth Story Academy, and you can enroll in it at birthstory.com. It's taught by me. You can be in your jammies. It's online. It's pre-recorded, and it has a ton of freebies and downloads. It's everything that you need to prepare for your hospital birth. So hope to see you in Birth Story Academy. Today's episode is with Julia Winn. She is an amazing TikTok influencer. She's a videographer. She does great content creation, and she happens to live in my city, Charlotte, North Carolina. And one of the doulas on my team at Birth Story Boutique, her name's Kat. She also owns her own company, The Birth Co. She is a doula who supported Julia as her very first birth as a doula. And Julia desired an unmedicated birth and was faced with an induction for a medical reason. And so today's episode is chatting with Julia and Kat, but really inspiring, planting a seed in your heart that if you are desiring an unmedicated birth, even on your first birth, and you need to be induced, whether it is you just want to be induced or if it's a medically necessary induction, that you absolutely can have an unmedicated birth if that's what you want. And today we're here to inspire you and teach you about how Julia accomplished that. So let's get to it. What does a contraction feel like? How do I know if I'm in labor? And what does a day of labor look like? Wait, is this normal? Hey, I'm Heidi. My best friends call me Hides. I'm a certified birth doula, host of this podcast, and author of Birth Story, an interactive pregnancy guidebook. I have supported hundreds of women through their labor and deliveries, and I believe every one of them and you deserves a microphone and a stage. So here we are. Listen each week to get answers to these tough questions. Birth Story, where we talk about pregnancy, labor, deliveries, where we tell our stories and share our feelings, and of course, chat about our favorite baby products and motherhood. And because I'm passionate about birth outcomes, you will hear from some of the top experts in labor and delivery. Whether you are pregnant, trying desperately to get pregnant, or you just love a good birth story, I hope you will stick around and be part of this Birth Story family. Julia and Kat, welcome to the Birth Story podcast. How are you guys today?
Great. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
So that's Julia talking, and Julia is the person who gave birth. So this is the first time we've actually interviewed someone who gave birth with their doula. I'm very excited to have kind of this duality today of hearing these stories. And if you guys have listened to the Statistics podcast, Kat finished the Birth Story Media full internship and graduated as a birth doula from that program that I run. And this story is from before Kat went through that program. So we'll see.
That's true. It's
How it
fun.
goes.
I love that you guys are just getting to meet each other. It's sweet to be here.
Today, we're talking about unmedicated birth with an induction. And the reason this is so special, I had an unmedicated induction, Julia. So many people find out they have to have an induction for whatever reason. And then they think, oh, I can't do it. My dreams of unmedicated birth, they are out the window. There's no hope. I'll never be able to do it. And this podcast is about hope. You can go back and listen to my Unmedicated Pitocin AROM. I was like, give it all to me, make me hurt. Unmedicated birth. But we're here today to give you some inspiration. So, Julia, can you start by telling us a little bit about who you are, what your platforms are, how people could follow you if they wanted to get in touch with you after this podcast?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I am a mom, of course. And I am also a videographer and video editor. So I own my own company that started about 2 years ago. And I love what I do. I'm like so grateful every single day to be able to work for myself and have, somewhat of a flexible schedule. I really do enjoy it. And yeah, I've lived in Charlotte for 4 years. I'm originally from up north in New Hampshire, but I had to get away from the snow and the cold. So I'm like loving the weather down here. I don't think I can go any more north. I also do a little bit of social media just for fun. So I create content on YouTube, TikTok, and then sometimes on Instagram I'll post, but a lot of just like lifestyle videos. Now, of course, that I'm a mom, I do some mom videos and just hanging out with my baby.
And how can we get a hold of you? What are those handles?
Yes, I am. So on Instagram, I'm Julia_Winn. On YouTube, I'm just Julia Winn, and it's WINN. And then on TikTok, I am Julia_Winn, WINN.
Okay.
As well.
Very consistent branding. Thank you. I will link all of that in the show notes so you guys can easily just click if you want to check out some of Julia's content. So now, Kat, this was your very first birth as a birth doula.
Yeah.
You guys, I want to instill confidence in those seeking out a birth doula that might be afraid for some reason to hire what we call a fresh doula or a fresh, Kat calls herself a birth companion, a fresh birth companion. And so today we're going to talk about a little bit about Kat's journey with intuition and nurture and being a doula as being a calling also, because you don't have to have attended thousands of births to know how to intuitively care for a person that's giving birth. So I'm really excited to hear how you did on your very first birth before you came to me, because I've worked side by side with Kat. Now, Kat is a birth photographer and a photographer also, lifestyle and newborn and family photographer as well. So is that how you guys connected, or like how did this meeting occur?
That's a great question. So Julia and I, we joke, we used to call ourselves coworkers. So a little bit, we really weren't in the same field. So I was nannying for a family at the time, who is an Instagram influencer in Charlotte, and Julia kind of got hired probably about 8 months after I had started with this family and started doing content creation, Instagram reels, essentially for a lot of the products that she was kind of advertising and talking about within her family and for her followers. And so we just became friends. And then after I finished nannying with this family, we just stayed friends. So Julia got pregnant probably at the end of my time with this family, and we just really connected. So it wasn't over photography inherently, but we worked for the same family at one point.
Got it. Now, is this Bailey Schwartz?
Yes.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of listeners that are at least listening from Charlotte might absolutely know Bailey, and then she's got a pretty large following. So now I'm trying to envision it. So Kat, you're kind of helping Bailey out with the kids while Julia's coming in to help Bailey with content creation, and everybody's just sort of girl vibing it. Right?
Yes, it was a great time.
I love this. Like, that's a meet cute right there.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah, Kat and I just like clicked immediately. I remember like from day one, me meeting you, I'm like, I like this girl. We just like would talk about anything. Kat has this energy about her that just, you make people feel like you've known them for a while, and it's very comforting to talk to you. So it's kind of just always been that way from the beginning. And yeah, like she said, we just started a carpool and we got super close. Now we're very close friends.
So Julia, at this point, Kat, are you even a doula if Julia was your first client? Or were you and Julia talking about how you wanted to become a doula? Like, how did this go down?
So I was certified and trained and everything. And I I feel like honestly, I was probably like wanting to be at Julia's birth more than she maybe was wanting me there. I was like, please let me come, please. I was just begging her.
So you're just sitting here pining to be at Julia's birth. And then Julia, do you know what a doula is at this point?
Yeah, I do know what a doula is. However, I didn't know everything, I guess, all of the services that you guys offer. So Kat definitely educated me on that and like the importance in, investing into a doula. And I aligned with like all of that.
So Julia, let's talk about your pregnancy. Was this planned, spontaneous, fertility?
Yeah, so it was spontaneous, not planned, but yeah, I can kind of dive into finding out if you'd like.
Yeah, go for it.
We are going to start with a story that may not seem like it's leading to finding out, but it will. So
Okay.
just hold on. So on June 12th of 2023, I woke up in severe abdominal pain. And one thing about me is if I have pain abdominally, I'm like, oh, it's gas. Like, that's just what it is. And so I kind of kept going, kept moving. And I actually worked with Bailey that day and Kat was there. So I went to work and I'm like, I'll be fine. I get there and I'm like in excruciating pain. I had to keel over. I didn't even think we got any work done. I was like, Bailey, I think I need to lay down. So I laid down on her couch. Bailey's over there like Googling what it could possibly be. And then eventually I was like, we need to go to the hospital, I think. So we go to the ER. They do a bunch of tests.
When you say we go to the ER, like, is this Bailey and Kat taking you to the ER with the kids in tow?
That's a great picture.
So Kat actually stayed home with the kids.
Okay.
Bailey took me to the ER until my partner could meet us.
Okay.
So Bailey was with me for a while. She was my companion. She was amazing. And yeah, so they just ran urine. They did an ultrasound. They did blood, everything. Well, sorry, originally the urine and blood work came back as like, I'm not pregnant or anything like that. But the ultrasound showed that my appendix was about to rupture and that I also had a ruptured ovarian cyst. So it was like a double whammy. And long story short, I ended up having an emergency appendectomy that evening.
Okay. And you guys, I know a little bit about medical stuff. When we're doing an ultrasound to look at ovaries and appendix, we're maybe not taking a deep dive into the uterus, which is a different part of the body, believe it or not. It's even not right next to the ovary. And if your blood work and your urine were negative, I'm assuming we're going somewhere like there might have been a pregnancy in there. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But this could be confusing to some because if they're not taking a deep dive into the uterus, that could be something that was overlooked. So right then you have an emergency appendectomy. Now, sorry, what about the ovary?
With the ovarian cyst, they just said that's something that will kind of pass. Okay. They didn't work on anything like that surgically. It was just my appendix. Pretty much my whole abdomen was like the worst pain.
I'm actually starting to understand the fact that you had an unmedicated birth on Pitocin right from the beginning because you're rupturing your appendix and you're rupturing a cyst, two of the most painful things that you can experience in this life, and you went to work.
Yes. And she... From my perspective, it's actually interesting as her doula, even before her birth, like I watched Julia probably go through the most excruciating pain and she just took it. She was just on the couch. She was like, I think I need some water, but she was great. She was like, I was like, your appendix you've just learned that your appendix was rupturing or about to.
I would be in the emergency room with my like arm out showing my biggest vein going Dilaudid. Pour some Dilaudid into that vein right now.
Well, I don't know. If you did a Pitocin unmedicated birth, you could probably have.
Listen, totally different for me because my gallbladder actually exploded after I had babies. And I have said this story over and over again. I would do unmedicated birth on Pitocin every single day for the rest of my life if they told me I would never have to have a gallbladder explosion again. So anyway, I feel like there's a difference between constant pain, Julia, and intermittent pain. And labor is intermittent. It comes and goes. Appendix is quite constant though.
Yeah, it was pretty constant from that morning till I want to say the surgery wasn't until later in the afternoon, like 4 or 5.
Okay.
So I know to subside some of the pain, they were giving me ibuprofen or Tylenol or something
Okay.
that was relieving me a little bit.
Yeah.
And then after I came out of the surgery, I remember feeling like so much better.
Okay. Well, they probably gave you a little bit of morphine when they did the surgery, maybe like a little bit. And also, there's really good data on antibiotics kind of helping heal. Like some people don't have their appendix removed, they just do the courses of antibiotics that can reduce some of that inflammation also prior to going into surgery. So I'm assuming they gave you a little bit of that. Okay. So you have your appendix out. You wake up, you feel better. You still have this ovarian cyst that has ruptured or whatever, but you're like, I feel amazing.
I feel so good. I definitely took it easy, but I was able to like kind of walk around, and they want you to walk around a little bit for just to keep the blood flowing and everything. So I wasn't overdoing it, but I was definitely felt a world of a difference. And then let's just fast forward like 2 weeks. Okay. I, at the time, was like synced up with my best friend on our menstrual cycle. And I remember her getting it, and I was like, okay, still haven't got it. That's okay. Like, one thing about me too to know is that I'm very type B. I am like, oh, my period's coming. I don't really track. So for me, I didn't really get too worked up about it. I was like, oh, it's just late because I had my surgery. My hormones are off. So I wait. And then I want to say I was like 3 weeks late.
Okay.
And
now,
like,
personal question.
Yeah.
Post surgery, I'm assuming we're not like just jumping back into the sack with our partner, but like, did you have sex and like right after you had surgery?
No, probably not. I mean, definitely not that I can recall.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I probably waited.
Okay. I mean, that's probably good to like let your body heal, but I was just wondering if there was like any possibility that you weren't pregnant during the surgery, but it sounds like no, had to have definitely been pregnant during the surgery.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, definitely. So I told my partner, I'm like, I think we just got to go get a pregnancy test and just, rip the Band-Aid. And so I remember I actually vlogged this because I was like, this is going to be so funny. Like, we're going to come back and, it's going to be negative, or I was not believing that it would come out positive. But lo and behold, we come back home, we took the test, and I was positive.
Wait, so you did this on a video?
Yeah, I have the video.
Oh my gosh. You're going to have to send it to me so I can repost it to my Instagram.
Yeah, I will.
When this episode drops. Oh, that will be so fun. I can't even imagine what your reaction was.
You'll see in the video, but we actually took one test. It came out as an error. I probably just was so nervous and peed on the stick, or didn't hold, the stick into the pee long enough. So it came out as error, and I'm like, oh, of course. Okay, we got to do it again. So we do it again. And then I remember I was just like keeping myself busy. I was pacing around, and you could see my partner in the video, and he's like, it's positive. And I was kind of outside of the frame a little bit. So I came into the video, and I was like, you're joking. Like, I didn't believe him. And then I walked up to it, and I read positive or pregnant. I think it literally just said pregnant. And I was like, okay. And then I, of course, just started bawling. I was in denial. I was like, maybe it's a false positive because my hormones. But I also want to say, like, I was happy too. It was just my initial shock of like, oh my gosh, we weren't trying. And I really doubted the fact that I was pregnant. So
Okay, so if you're not trying, does that mean this slipped through a condom or birth control, or were you just kind of like pull and pray?
Yes.
Okay.
That part.
All right.
Pull and
Okay.
pray.
Type B again. Back to,
Very
back to
type
type
B.
B. Okay.
And mind you, we have been together for 9, at the time, 7 years, 7.5. And we, everything was fine.
Always
I've never
worked.
been on birth control. So
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So we're pregnant, and now
yeah.
is your mind like, "Oh my gosh, I had major surgery
Yes.
with anesthesia and medicines." Like, are you freaking
Definitely.
out?
So we did the math and we went back, and I'm like, okay, I would have been like a week pregnant with her, because by the time we ended up finding out, since I waited so long after my missed period, I was about 7.5 weeks already. But we went back and we're like, oh yeah, it would have lined up that I was a week. And I almost had the thought, which I don't know anatomically if this would even make sense, if like the ruptured ovarian cyst was actually like a zygote, or like maybe that's not really in the same area, but I was just trying to make sense of this all. And I was like, maybe it wasn't a ruptured cyst, maybe it was the baby. I guess it's questions that we won't really get the answer to.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just wanted to share that too, because it definitely played a part in our finding out, that we were pregnant.
Yeah.
So
oh my gosh, what a story. Okay. So what do you do? Do you call the doctor?
yeah, luckily I did call, make an appointment, and I think I was seen like a week later. So I'm like, how do I do this? And then I think later came some anxiousness, but I did end up we did do the genetic testing. So that kind of brought me some peace as well with that. So
yeah. Now at your first ultrasound, did the dating make sense? Like the dating went back to you were about a week pregnant during your surgery?
it did. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. What a wild conception story. You were 29 years old, and clearly you were working for Bailey, and assumingly she has children at this time because Kat is babysitting them. I don't know if it was, she has 3, right? One, 2, 3.
There were 2 at this point.
2 at this point. Okay.
Yep.
You didn't wiggle your way into Bailey's birth as her doula? I digress. Okay.
So her second came like right as I entered their life and started needing for them.
I was like, but I see this pattern of like, I know you. Do you want me to be your doula?
That's funny.
So Julia, I'm going to jump ahead. Did you always want to have an unmedicated birth?
I think that once I found out I was pregnant, I wanted, or I craved to have an unmedicated birth. I wasn't set in stone from the beginning, but my best friend from where I'm from, she had an unmedicated birth. And then another best friend of mine had an unmedicated birth, as well as my mom. So I'm like hearing all of these success stories, and I'm like, if they can do it, I can do it. And I strongly believe in, the mental aspect of it, of just, since I desired that for myself and my birth plan, I knew that I could do it.
Yeah.
Mentally.
Every time I have a conversation with someone on this podcast who had an unmedicated birth, the story is always the same. Someone in their life had a positive birth experience about unmedicated birth that they shared with them. That maybe that was a personal reference, maybe it was a television show, but somehow they had been exposed to positive physiological birth. Julia, tell me about how your pregnancy went after having this like mega experience at conception.
Yeah. So to be honest, overall, my pregnancy, I felt amazing. Like I was very, very blessed to not have morning sickness, a little bit of nausea, but I would eat right in the morning or right away when I woke up and felt great. So I was very blessed throughout my pregnancy. I will say around 34 weeks, I woke up again in some excruciating abdominal pain. And me being me, I just blame it on gas. But as the day progressed, the pain was still there. So I finally decided to go into the hospital. They brought me right up to triage, hooked me up to all the monitors, and I was waiting for a while by myself in the room, I remember, until my partner finally met me. But it wasn't for what felt like an hour. The doctor came in and was like, "Hey, so you're having contractions right now." And I just immediately, I was like, I was just crying because I'm like, there's no way I can go into labor at 34 weeks. Why am I having contractions? So, long story short, they found out I had BV and they just treated it, and I was able to go home.
Bacterial vaginosis is treated with antibiotics. It's very normal. In pregnancy, we get BV, we get yeast infections. If you have a history of herpes, it's normal to have an outbreak. Our immune systems are naturally weakened so that we will sustain a pregnancy and not reject it. So like nothing about having BV in a pregnancy is surprising to me or any of the medical personnel that you would have encountered that day.
And then come about 37 weeks, I was with a friend, and she had offered me a wrap from Costco, and I looked at all the ingredients and I thought we were good to go. I didn't see anything on there that seemed like I couldn't eat it. So I had it, and literally that evening, I get a text from her saying she got an email from Costco saying that those wraps were recalled for Listeria. And so,
Julia, I just can't. I'm sorry I'm laughing, but I'm just like, are you like chronically a person with terrible bad luck? Like,
I'm not.
Okay.
No, which is so funny because, again, like if you were to ask me, how is your pregnancy? Overall, I'd be like, amazing. I love being pregnant. But I guess there are some funny things.
Just a little appendicitis, a little BV with some maybe preterm labor, and then a Listeria. I mean, just because you're exposed to Listeria doesn't mean you're going to get sick, but like, okay, how did this play out?
Correct. So my friend texted me that evening. It was like 10 something PM, and I shouldn't even be on my phone at that late, but I read it and I was like, oh great, now I can't sleep. So I'm up Googling. Don't recommend, you guys, but I made an appointment the next day. Or I called my doctor, my OB, and I told her what happened. So they didn't seem too concerned. So the next appointment that I had, because at that point you're being seen weekly,
okay,
they took my blood. And so I want to say roughly I'm like 38 or 39 weeks by the time they actually draw my blood to go get tested. And that alone takes like a few days to come back. So it's like, oh my gosh, am I okay?
Did you feel okay?
Right. So mind you, I am not having any symptoms. I'm not throwing up. I'm not headache or anything like that Listeria usually brings on. So that's why they weren't concerned either, was I'm not showing symptoms. They take my blood, and then at this point, by the time it comes back, I'm already after 40 weeks. And so my original induction date was scheduled for 40 weeks, and I want to say 6 days.
Okay, hold on. I'm going to have to pause here, you guys, because Kat knows this is where I get like I go on my soapbox. So why, as a young, healthy person, did you have an induction scheduled at 40 weeks and 6 days?
Yeah, I, to be honest, don't know. That was not a part of my original birth plan. I did not want that. However, I feel like I trusted my OB to make the best call. I love her. Like, she's awesome. So I was kind of just like, you know what, if this is what she thinks is best, I kind of pushed it a little bit. I got membrane sweeps. And I'm like, nothing's working. So I think it was just one of those things I didn't really push back too much at that point. So I'm like, okay, we're just going to schedule this induction.
I bring this up because there are a lot of hospital systems across the United States that do not like their patients to be pregnant longer than 41 weeks. The problem with that is that when we leave people alone and we don't touch them, the average gestation for a first-time person giving birth is 41 weeks, 1 day. So we're inducing everyone before they would like naturally have an opportunity to go into labor. Now, it gets very confusing because a few miles down the road is another hospital system, and their cutoff is like 42 weeks. And so, you know, it gets confusing for people that are pregnant because they'll talk to their friends and they'll say, well, my doctor over here at this hospital system says it's not safe for me or the baby to go past 41 weeks. And then this person over here is like, well, should I be nervous because my OB is saying I shouldn't be pregnant past 42 weeks? And it creates this atmosphere for people who are pregnant that's very confusing because these experts that we trust are giving different information just based on which hospital system they work for, which has different policies and procedures. Now, what I like that Julia said was, I had a relationship with my provider and I trusted my provider. Now, that goes a very long way. Also, membrane sweeps don't put you into labor. What membrane sweeps do is they ripen your cervix, just like eating dates, eating pineapple, having sex, using evening primrose oil, drinking a little castor oil. These are all things that ripen our cervix so that it helps you have a better, easier, faster induction. So anyway, just wanted to like go on my soapbox for a minute because I absolutely believe in medical inductions. I believe in elective inductions. The types of inductions I don't love is where someone tells you what to do with your body without explanation. But that does not seem like Julia's story. So it seems like you made an informed choice with a medical provider that you trust, and you landed on 40 weeks, 6 days, which is absolutely reasonable.
Yeah, definitely. She was great at explaining the whole process. She knew my birth plan and my desire to go unmedicated.
Awesome. Yeah. All right. So let's dig in. So did you go in the morning? Did you go in at night? Like, how did it go?
Yeah. So by the time they got the blood work back from the Listeria, she read the results, called me, and basically the results stated that I had antibodies in my system. Yeah.
Oh, shit. Okay. Well, that's a medical reason for an induction.
Right. So at this point now it is medically, necessary, but I think the day she called, it was like a Tuesday, and my scheduled induction was for that Thursday or Friday. So she had called and she said, hey, this came back as you have an antibodies for Listeria. They want to get you in ASAP. And I'm like, what does ASAP mean? Now, tomorrow? So we ended up scheduling it for the next day, which those 24 hours leading up to that was a pretty scary time for my partner and I, just because you just don't know what's going to happen with Listeria being in your system, because that can go through to the baby. So I was definitely nervous for that, but still tried to, breathe through it. And we were scheduled the next day for 2 p.m. So we got to the hospital at 2 p.m. I get all undressed and into my gown, and I started having contractions on my own. Just spontaneous.
So the hospital just scared you into physiological birth. Okay.
Yes. And I was like, okay, let's go.
How close together were they?
Ooh. Not very close.
Kat, do you remember?
Maybe 5 to 10 minutes. They were I remember her mentioning them to me, and they were not They were not super close. I don't remember.
Okay. And probably pretty short, but enough that you were like, ooh. And I'm sure at this point you're being monitored also. So they're probably registering like, oh, you're having contractions on your own.
Yeah, so I was laying there and I told my partner, I'm like, I think I'm having contractions right now. And then because I was there a few weeks earlier with the BV, I knew what a contraction looked like on the monitor. So I was checking, I'm like, oh my gosh, it looks like I'm having a contraction. So, and then, they come in and they confirm that I'm having contractions, but the doctor still wanted to go through and do some sort of intervention. So I chose the Foley.
Okay, so the Foley bulb is kind of another term for it is a Cook catheter, which actually they're two different things, but they're used interchangeably. Another term for that, you guys, is a balloon catheter. So specifically with the Foley, it means there's going to be a balloon on the inside of your vagina next to your cervix and then through the cervix on the top part of the cervix. So you have two balloons that are filled with saline, putting pressure on the cervix, mimicking baby's head so that the cervix will release prostaglandins and will thin and will start to dilate. So you have to be at least 1 centimeter dilated to get the Foley placed, which we had already confirmed at 34 weeks. So what were you when they went to place the bulb?
I was still only at a 1.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so they were
Yeah.
able to still go through with that plan.
Yes. Yeah. So they inserted the Foley and kind of gave me the rundown on this should take about 7 hours or 5 to 7 hours. I forget the time frame. That's an average amount for it to kind of fall out on its own. And I was like, oh great. Okay, that's fine. So, they left and an hour and a half had passed and I had the sensation that I had to pee, but mind you, the Foley's very uncomfortable if you haven't had it. I wasn't really experiencing any pain with it, but it was just an uncomfortable feeling. So I was like, maybe it's just pressing on my bladder and I don't really have to go. So I tried to use the restroom and I couldn't. The Foley was just not allowing me to. And it felt like it was coming out as I was trying to use the restroom. So I called the nurse. She came in and she tugged on it lightly and it popped right out.
Okay.
And this was an hour and a half after they put it in.
That's so fast, Julia.
Yes. Yes. So she checked and I was at about 3.5 to, she said, I'll give you 4. So at 4 centimeters, they moved me from triage to the actual labor and delivery room.
Okay. Wow. Now you are right on your timeline. So once they place the Foley, then within 5 to 7 hours, typically you're having some good release of prostaglandins. Some people get crampy, some have contractions, and they can keep it in up to 12 hours. But at the 12-hour mark, if it hasn't fallen out on its own, then they would remove it manually. I don't know the percentages, but I would say my experience over 22 years tells me that most of the time it drops on its own. And are you feeling more contractions at this point?
Yeah, so I'm still feeling contractions. So basically the doctor allowed me to go to the labor and delivery room and just labor on my own. They didn't want to do anything else. And I told them I didn't want to do anything else either, just intervention wise. So I wanted to allow my body to do what it needed to naturally. So I labored on my own overnight until 5 a.m. They came back in and checked me and I was at a 5. Okay. So
that's a lot of progress. Okay. That's a lot of progress, you guys. Getting to 6 centimeters dilated takes so much time. 6 centimeters is when you hit active labor. So I think that's awesome. I think that to me is like so fast. You came in and less than 24 hours later, you went from nothing to 5 centimeters dilated. That's huge.
Yeah, definitely. I was proud of my body and I wanted to go more by myself, but at that point when they checked me around 5 a.m., I was still 5 centimeters. that's kind of when they started to talk about like, hey, let's maybe look into Pitocin or manually breaking your water, which is not, again, what I wanted to do. But at that point, my partner and I discussed that we would start with the Pitocin and see where that would get me. And that is also when I called Kat. Okay. So I called Kat, I think around, our notes say 5:45 a.m. Okay. Yeah. And she came shortly after that. And then I think it was at 7 a.m. that they started me on Pitocin.
That makes sense, so, right around shift change.
Yes. Yeah. So, and right after the Pitocin is when the pain just really came in, and the contractions were extremely, extremely painful. So with the Pitocin, I was in active labor, I guess, from 5 centimeters till, I want to say 6 centimeters. And I was in the worst pain of my life. And I'm like, surely this baby's about to be here. And I had the doctor come in and he's like, you're at a 6. We've had progress, but I'm like, oh my gosh, I thought we were almost there. So that's kind of when we discussed, do you want to keep going with the Pitocin or would you like me to manually break your water? And I want to say time-wise, this is probably like 9, Kat, would you say?
Yeah, that's what I had written in my notes. Maybe even a little, like 8:30 or so. Yeah.
Okay.
Now, Kat, did they involve you as in the obstetrician, or did anybody say, like, let's take a pause and talk about the benefits and the risks of Pitocin versus breaking water? Like, was there any kind of time for you guys to kind of huddle and like think through that decision?
It's a great question. So yeah, kind of what Heidi mentioned, you already mentioned a little bit, but this hospital is a little more, has some like restrictions for doulas and not as much of a kind of culture of like, okay, we have other birth workers that are coming in outside of the hospital. So it, in some ways, and as my first birth, I was learning like the communication with the OB and the midwives and the team. So some of these things were a little bit kind of maybe just given to Julia as like, this is what we kind of need to do. And it was a hard situation too, because we had, there was kind of this medical reasoning for why she was being induced because of the Listeria. So in ways I was educating in what I could, but in other ways too, I was learning the environment and the tone. And yeah, and kind of at the end of the day, giving Julia kind of the voice to say, hey, what do you think is best?
Yeah. Okay. That all makes sense to me. I've been at that hospital system many times, and especially your first birth. I mean, I don't think I said a word for my first like 20 births. I was like, you're good.
Funny.
I was like, I'm here for the back rubs.
Yeah.
Advocacy. What's that? It takes a while to kind of get that piece in. So Julia, what felt right to you? Did it feel better to have your waters broken or to have Pitocin?
I remember exactly how I was feeling in that moment after he had checked me. And I was a little bit discouraged just because I was in so much pain. And I was like, I really thought that I was, at a 10 and we're ready to go. So it took me a minute. And if I do recall, I feel like he might have left and came back until I made my final decision to break my water. I could be mistaken, but I did decide to break my water and was really hoping that that would just expedite and speed up the process. And it did. It did. So by the time when he manually broke my water, I felt the gush. And I went from a 6 to a 7 immediately. As he was like breaking my water, he felt it. Okay. And he's like, okay, so you just went to a 7. That's great. And that's again where like the pain was just so excruciating. I did ask them to shut the Pitocin off. So at this time, I think they shut the Pitocin off before he broke my water. And from there, the contractions were very, very quick and very painful. My partner and Kat were switching out on hip squeezes. I had aromatherapy. I had Kat giving me water. Like, she was amazing. They both were amazing. And I'm so grateful to have had them both in the room, because I think my partner would agree. Like, if we didn't have Kat, like, it would have definitely been a lot more difficult for me to do that unmedicated.
Yeah. Well, so early labor is 0 through 5 centimeters. 5 to 6 is what we call like hard active or early active labor. Then you get to 7, and somewhere between 7 and 9 is when transition hits. And that's that feeling of like, I want to get out of here. I want to crawl out of my skin. Like, this is the most, you think the pain's never going to end. And then you sort of just black out. You go to another place, like you stop communicating, you stop making eye contact. You have to trust the people in the room that are like taking care of you. You're gone, And so, Kat, this is where Julia's memories will probably fade away into like just pain and in comfort measures alternating, right? So, Kat, what was your perception of how she responded to after her water being broken?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, it was definitely, there's a difference for sure. I mean, you just think about there being amniotic fluid as the uterus is contracting, and then you think about that being really taken away in a moment. So yeah, we were doing lots of counter pressure. We were laboring on the toilet for a bit, which I think kind of helped Julia a little bit. There was even later on in that, there was a moment where she was like, I think I just want to be with Chima in the bathroom. And I was like, okay, I think this is where we're like losing her a little bit. We like to say like they're going into labor land. And yeah, and so I think that she was coping with the pain really incredibly through, I was just breathing with her. Yeah, and it was really sweet to watch Chima, her partner, just kind of eye lock with her, just all these different things that that they had trained, and educated themselves in up until that point.
Beautiful. So what time in the morning was the water broken?
Though my water was broke, I think it was like 9 a.m.
9 a.m.
8:45, 9.
Okay, so you're about 7 centimeters, 8:45 or 9. It's pretty normal for it to be 1 to 2 hours per centimeter from that time. So I wouldn't have expected you to have been in labor more than 3 to 6 more hours, but birth is unpredictable. When did you kind of get your bloody show or feel the urge to kind of bear down?
Well, I would say, so my water was manually broken at 9. I want to say at like 10:15 was when Kat was mentioning I kind of just wanted to be with Chima. I actually had the sensation I needed to have a bowel movement. And I know that that's common as well. So we were in the restroom and I was on the toilet, and maybe TMI, but I did actually have to go. So I'm having a bowel movement.
Wow. Okay. Normally I'm like, haha, if you have to poop, like that's the baby's head.
Yeah, no, I don't know how, I guess I knew, but I was like, no, I think this is
actual poop, not a baby's head.
Yeah. I just wanted to get it out of the way before, so it didn't come during.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. But so I'm on the toilet, and after that was when it was really, I'm like looking at my partner and I'm like, why did I do this? Like, oh my gosh, I'm convulsing, I'm having the shakes. And I told him at 10:15, I want to say, I was like, no, this baby is coming now. So Kat went and ran and got the nurse and the doctor. I went back on the bed, and I, at this point, was essentially, my body was pushing for me. And through each contraction, my body was pushing for me. And the nurse was like, well, you have to wait. Like, you know, the doctor's not here yet. And I was like, ma'am, I can't help it. My body is ready to go. So I
It's
was
a
trying to wait.
reflex, you guys. It's called the fetal ejection reflex. I mean, it's so funny that they say wait. I'm like, hello, if you were about to have diarrhea and someone said no, I'm sorry. You can't be like, okay, I won't diarrhea.
Yeah. Like, let me just hold off.
It's a reflex. Like you're pushing whether you want to push or not.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, definitely. And I was also made aware of this. If you remember, my best friends both had gone through an unmedicated birth. So they had both told me, your body is just going to do it for you. And so that basically clicked in that moment. I'm like, oh, my body is doing it for me right now. I'm not even having to push. So I remember the doctor came in shortly after that. So it's not like I was waiting for a while, but he came in, he checked me. I was 10 centimeters and he's like, let's have a baby.
okay.
And that is when, you know, the floods of healthcare workers came in, about 10 of them.
For a little bit of context, this is a large teaching hospital in the city. So this is a large hospital that has a lot of residents, those types of things, which I think Julia in her birth plan didn't inherently have anything against, you know, there being a little more people in the delivery room. Because for some people, it might sound like crazy to be like, there were 10 people in the room. She just kind of wanted there to be more quiet during her, while she was laboring.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to make the assumption that NICU would have been there also just for a short period of time with the Listeria to assess your daughter. And then if everything's fine, NICU leaves very quickly.
Yeah, it definitely had to do with the Listeria as well as a teaching hospital. I do remember they had like 2 nurses for me, 2 nurses for the baby, you know, and multiple doctors. So they definitely were just prepared for whatever could happen, not knowing what the Listeria could have done as well. So yeah, I ended up pushing for 13 minutes and she
Wow.
was here.
What positions did you push in?
I pushed on my back.
That's
And
okay.
it's okay. I think I would have preferred a different position, like maybe on my hands and knees or something. But at that point, like I was pretty much blacked out. And I was just like, I honestly, when he said 10 centimeters, I almost felt relief pain wise because I had a like light at the end of the tunnel. I was like, at least I know she's here. I think before during my labor process or during active labor, I'm like, the struggle is not knowing how long this is going to last. So when I found out she's going to be here after some pushes, I was like, I can do this. Like, let's go.
Yeah.
So
true. Now, some of my clients really find that the most powerful is on their back, even in home birth. I'll have some of my clients be laying in their bed on their back and pull their knees up. Some are more comfortable in runner's lunge. Some are more comfortable on hands and knees. Some are more comfortable in a squat. I think the important part, Julia, is that you were clearly a powerful pusher on your back if you only push for 13 minutes.
yeah, definitely. I pushed for, I think, what is it? 3 sets of 3 10s,
Yeah.
10 seconds.
Yeah. So they still did coached pushing with you, even though you were unmedicated.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he did. He counted me down from 10 or counted up to 10. I liked that he did that. My doctor, he was amazing. Everyone in the room was amazing. Like they were such great support systems. I feel like from all of them, like encouraging me. So I am overall glad that I had the assisted, like the countdowns and stuff
Yeah.
like that, just to,
Yeah.
push through.
So when she emerged because of the Listeria and the NICU team and stuff, did they allow you to do delayed cord clamping or did they really need to see her and assess her right away?
They actually put her on me right away. And she started crying almost immediately. If I remember, Kat, some of this is a little bit, I'm like still I'm shaking. I remember it took me a couple hours after my birth actually to even understand what just happened. Like I was picturing myself to be sobbing and just like, oh my gosh, my baby's here. I was not doing any of that. I was very shaky. I was trying to control myself. I was trying obviously to like hold her and not drop her. And yeah, so to answer your question, they didn't need to take her, I don't think, for at least that long. And then shortly after, they latched her immediately to me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. I love it. And so there was no signs of listeria or illness or anything for
No,
both of you guys.
so yeah, no signs. They did end up keeping us for 2 days, which I don't know if that's common in first pregnancy, but we stayed a total of 2 nights for them to assess us. And you know, I know a lot of doctors come in anyways, but I think we had maybe a little bit more coming in and out from infectious control and everything like that. It seemed to be very like red flag to everybody that I had listeria because the way that they were communicating to me was almost like it was the first time that they were seeing it. And I was like, wow, I feel like a case study almost because it just felt like they didn't really, you know, they were doing their best from what it seemed like to communicate to us and educate us. But they didn't seem to be too concerned since she wasn't showing anything. She was very, very healthy. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, it is pretty rare, and you were kind of like a case study. I mean, I've been doing this 22 years and I've never, ever had a single client with listeria. So,
Wow. Yeah.
Kat and I joke that she's seen
All
10
the things.
things that I've never seen. You know what I mean? Birth is just so funny and unpredictable that, like, here it is. I'm 22 years of experience, and Kat is a year and a half, and she's already had so many big, huge things happen in her career that, you know, I still don't have experience with. So I'm assuming that not everybody comes in every day with listeria positivity. Okay, this is a random question, but I'm thinking about your friend at Costco. Did she also get listeria?
So I guess to be honest, like we wouldn't have really known we were exposed if we didn't get that email since we weren't experiencing symptoms. So for her, you know, she wasn't pregnant or any reason to really go get checked, I
Okay.
guess. So she was fine.
Okay.
And that was really it.
That was it. Okay. I was like, I know we're doing your birth story, but I just started thinking about your friend and was like, wait, someone else was involved in this story, you know?
Yeah.
Did they ever test your daughter for antibodies?
They didn't, if I recall correctly. I do remember them telling me that they would have tested the placenta had they not thrown it out. And I was like, why didn't, why wasn't that like a known thing to keep it? Or I would have asked to have kept it if that was a way just to ensure, because I would have loved to know had it passed through to her. Because one of the things that was a little bit scary still was there's like 2 onset periods for it to pass through to her or for her to get symptoms. And that is like within the first week of her life and also after 90 days of her life. So it was almost like after we left the hospital, it was almost still a little bit triggering because after a couple or 3 months, she could still have some symptoms. But um, yeah, it was just interesting that they wouldn't have kept the placenta if that would have kind of given us some answers.
Yeah, that was probably something that was their intention. You had a lot of indications for the placenta to have gone to pathology and for you to have received a full pathology report. So I'm just going to say that I know that hospital very well. They normally would have sent your placenta to pathology. So that was probably just a miss. You know, we're all humans and people are busy. And once it's contaminated, then you can't go backwards, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm sorry you didn't get answers right away. This is a lesson for those of you learning, though. If you're getting induced for a medical reason, then maybe put on your birth plan, if you're not planning to donate the placenta, if you're not planning to encapsulate the placenta, then maybe you put on there, I would like a full pathology report, and that's part of your birth plan. So, I wouldn't normally even say that because it's so obvious, but maybe that is a future advocacy piece, just to say, hey, I just want to make sure this is going to pathology. I don't know.
I definitely agree with you. One thing I've learned throughout my pregnancy is advocate for yourself, because no one else will really do that other than your amazing doula if you have one. But no one is going to go the extra mile for you if you don't. So definitely ask the questions, put your foot down, and know your reasons why you want to do things, and kind of stand beside that.
Yeah. So as we close here, Julia, I think that's very wise. I would like you to, you get up there and you preach two things. I would like you to share about how people should not be afraid to hire a doula with no experience or little experience. And then also, parting words, like I said, it only takes one person telling you about their positive unmedicated birth experience. So I just want you to leave us with those two things, like encouraging others to have an unmedicated induction if that's on their heart, and believing in a doula regardless of their experience.
Yeah, those are great questions. I think having a doula by your side is such an amazing tool, I guess, if I can say. Like, you guys are so amazing, so encouraging. It's great to know that you have someone there on your side that's not so close to you as, like, say the father or the mother of the baby that is a little bit more emotionally involved. Even though Kat and I are close friends, she was still a little bit removed in that aspect. So I feel like having someone else in the room is so beneficial for you, just to offer that support physically and mentally, giving you encouragement and aromatherapy, water. Like, the encouragement was exactly what I needed. So I definitely recommend a doula to anybody that is wanting one, because I think it would only better your experience. I would love to end this podcast by saying, if there was anyone that came to me wanting an unmedicated birth and asked me, how did I do it? I would encourage you, one, to find your reason or your why on why you even want to do that. Like, kind of write it out, and figure out how you can get there. And what I mean by that is, I think knowledge is power, and knowledge trumps fear. So getting those answers that you may be a little bit weary of or have fear of, whether that's asking your doctor or your doula or any medical professional that could answer those questions for you, that definitely helped me, was asking those quote unquote stupid questions, because there is no such thing, and getting the answers to them helps you feel so much better about them. I also would encourage you to watch maybe a birth story on YouTube that it clearly states in the title positive. And then I personally love Bridget Taylor on YouTube. Her last name is spelled Teylor, I believe. And she is amazing at explaining how she personally went through unmedicated birth. And she's also a doula herself. She goes through breathing techniques and just educating you on what that whole process looks like. So that is how I believe that I got through it, along with just my amazing support system that I'm so grateful for.
Awesome. I think those are great tips, and I will link to Bridget Taylor also in your show notes so that people could check her out. Julia and Kat, thank you so much for being here today on the Birth Story podcast and sharing your positive birth story through an unmedicated induction and then those crazy twists and turns along the way.
Thank you for listening to Birth Story. My goal is you will walk away from each episode with a clear picture of how labor and delivery might go, and that you will feel empowered by the end of your pregnancy to speak up, plan and prepare for the birth you want, no matter what that looks like.